Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Medical Mindset Coach podcast. I am your host, Star Freudenberg, and today we will be talking on episode 5. And as this thing starts going on and on and on, I just sort of wanted to go back and reference back to episode 3, where I had a big sort of, I would even say, lecture on food allergies and intolerances. And I still feel, for me, this is one of the biggest themes and biggest topics around sort of at the moment, because, 10 years ago, people didn't even know what these things were, but couldn't explain typical symptoms that they were experiencing. And yet now everyone seems to have an issue somewhat today of some sort, whether you know about it or not. And because this is the field and industry that I work in, all my clients basically have done an intolerance or allergy test in some way or form, because there's so many different types of versions out there on how to get tested. So I thought, just sort of to add on to it today, there's a lovely little sort of article that I have that I just want to read to you, which I think is really, really great, just to sort of explain the mentality or sort of the defense of someone with a food allergy and intolerance, because basically it's a really hard life. You really have to become so intelligent and aware about food choices, because labels lie. Because, for example, the example that's coming up to my mind right now, if you go for plant-based alternative milk, you think, oh, I'm gonna go for almond milk. You automatically assume that is milk made from almonds and that's that. But actually, no, if you read the label, there's 2% of almonds in that. And you think, well, gosh, what is the rest made up of? And yes, maybe you don't have a problem with almonds, but what in the remaining ingredients may you have a sensitivity to? And it might even be preservatives, it might be additives, it might be something else. That's just another example. A lot of fruit juices, in order to be naturally preserved, use grape juice. And in the work that I'm doing, I've seen a lot of people have issues with grapes, including myself. So, that extends to fruit juices, that extends to wine, that extends to a couple of fermented items that, wine or grapes, even raisins that are used. So you have to really become aware of like, oh, I wonder what this item that I have an intolerance with may be in other things. So you start to become more aware of what's in labels, especially if you are a vegan, lifestyle-based person or a plant-based person or vegetarian. You'll start to see there's a lot of traces of things. Like, for example, in a lot of stocks, there's a lot of traces of fish oils or fish preservatives, or just lots of things that we just didn't expect to know that were in ingredients. So I always recommend read the food label. But the problem now is, and especially with me, I would say this has been a very big forefront experience in my life, and obviously in many other people's that start to come on the journey of recognizing or acknowledging that they have certain sensitivities, is that people don't really understand you, and they think like, oh, you're making it up, or gosh, this person's just extremely fussy. And especially for me, I come from South Africa originally, and, let alone maybe just 2 years pre-COVID that I went back, I felt like quite an outcast and sort of like a very fussy princess, if you will, because you think, well, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, I have to avoid this restaurant, I can't have this, And in South Africa, they don't even sort of, and I'm very generalizing and stereotyping big time, but the awareness level down there compared to Europe or the UK is very little in comparison. People be like, oh, you don't really have this problem, your mind's making it up. And then you start to think like, no, literally, I know when I eat something, I either have a reaction, same as an intolerance one, as I explained in the previous podcast, episode 3, or an allergy. And in order to sustain a healthy lifestyle and your energy levels, you kind of want to avoid these things. But there are going to be some times that you can't, and you're going to have to make these exceptions, but that's okay, because at least now you'll have the awareness and tools on how to best treat yourself. Sort of like when you have a hangover, you sort of have this fixed protocol of what you need to do after to get yourself back to optimum health. So today, all of that as a side note. So today I just wanted to read to you 6 things people with food intolerances actually want you to know. So 1, we're not being fussy. So it may seem like your worst nightmare that, you become that inconvenient dinner guest who can't have this food with this or that food with that, or you have to cook something separate. But I promise you there is an actual real reason, and it's not trying to be awkward or fussy or, not compliant, if you will. You need to appreciate that everyone has what I call a unique food fingerprint. And being aware of this gives us the knowledge to make the best possible choices for our food diet. So again, because I administer blood tests, I can do bioenergetic scanning to see what allergies or intolerances you have, or you can even do a hair test analysis, or maybe if you're very, I would say, fortunate, you can go to the NHS and get these tests done for free. But there are many ways to pursue them. But, I find it really extremely valuable to become informed about what is triggering you, because then you can make wiser food choices. So, the idea is then when you know this, you have the choice to avoid the trigger foods. So that means you want to avoid all the unwanted side effects that come with eating them. And that makes a much happier dinner guest all around. So I have quite a few, let's call it trigger foods. And quite literally after a meal, I almost have no choice, but I sort of do this unconscious pass out. And that doesn't make for a very, very good dinner guest now, does it? So I don't really think, people would want to have someone who's feeling almost instantly crampy, having a distended belly, feeling sleepy or maybe itchy, or uncomfortable, or instant headache, that kind of thing. So, it's just nice to plan ahead. So sort of now in this day and age, you just sort of ask people in advance, like, what are you eating? What is your lifestyle? What is your dietary requirements? See how we can best cater. Or maybe just, and I'm very happy to at times when I go to people's houses just to bring my own stuff, because at least I know I can eat what's right for my type. So you just sort of, we're not being fussy, just sort of ask. And then we'll mention, and if it's too much of a mission, then, happily we'll bring own stuff. Because the idea is it's a gathering and a social get together and spending time with each other. It's not really about the food. The food is just sort of, let's call it the excuse to bring people together. So just bear that in mind. All right, next one. And this also again links with my previous episode is it's not always the foods you assume, right? So I feel like everyone these days are sort of jumping on the bandwagon of like gluten-free, dairy-free, and you probably have seen the shelves or the supermarkets are being stocked with this is free from that, free from that, da-da-da-da. And people are looking into avoiding specific kind of foods because this is not actually with, let's call it educated, intelligent knowledge that you know what you are needing to avoid for your food fingerprint, for your type. You just sort of are influenced by like a fad or, what celebrities are following. And sort of maybe gluten can actually agree with your body. Maybe dairy does actually agree with your body. And maybe you're getting good nutrition from it, but predominantly not for everyone. So you shouldn't just assume because someone's avoiding that you like or that you follow, or maybe that's sort of the trend at the moment in your group, your circle, in the area that you're at, that you must follow it. It's good again to sort of get on top of that knowledge. But again, remember, in reality, it's important to remember that everyone reacts to food in different ways. So that food fingerprint we mentioned is unique to each person. And meaning that one person's trigger food is not always the same as another's. So in addition, trigger foods vary greatly, right? So, my speaker. Foods vary greatly, so we might all be guilty of blaming bread, for example, if you have a trigger reaction, or disapproving of dairy, but actually food could potentially be a problem. Any food can be potentially a problem. So that can be from prawns to potatoes, And again, if in doubt, it's good to get the confirmation you need from like a simple finger prick blood tests or hair analysis or bioresonance or bioenergetic testing. Because, the weirdest foods come up that I've seen with patients. I've seen coffee, I've seen saffron, I've seen spinach, I've seen grapes, yeast, eggs, potatoes, rice, shellfish, there's so many unexpected food items that you would think, I really wish I knew that sooner. Or sort of every time when I come out with okay, these are your results, like, I knew it. I actually knew it, because every time I eat this, I feel funny, or every time I eat this, I feel like going to sleep, or I need to go to bed instantly, or I instantly have cramps, or my stomach bloats, or I get very gassy. So it's sort of like you need that actual confirmation. And again, this is so easily available. So if you are interested, you can give me a call or get my details, and then we can book an appointment and organize these tests for you, because these tests are a one-off that you need to do. And then you have this knowledge as a base, and then you can make conscious food choices going forward. So the next thing I want you to also know is that some foods have different names. So it's really, really good to be on top of your food label readings and knowing the synonyms for them, because even with the best intentions, packaging can actually be misleading and can sort of convince us that something's not in there when it actually is. And if you just refer back to, for example, the almond milk example, and a lot of these names have very strange pseudonyms. So, for example, eggs can be called lecithin. I can't say this word. It's lecithin, lecithin. Or even for yeast. And yeast, I must say, is a very, very common one that pops up in all of my clients' results. So yeast is in basically everything. You're talking about pastries, to breads, to cakes, and obviously alcohol. But the most one that most people don't know about is it's also in mushrooms. And mushrooms, I've seen when I do colonic hydrotherapy, is a vegetable that just does not break down. And I feel like doesn't really add much benefit. And again, most people probably disagree with me. It doesn't add much benefit to the body, because if you're not breaking it down, you're not absorbing it. It is a fungus by nature. So it's got a lot of bacteria, and if you have an unhealthy constitution, or, that you're not going to the toilet sufficiently, that being stuck in your stomach rotting, I feel, is causing more harm than good. So as a sort of standard rule, I always ask people to avoid eating mushrooms. So yes, and then alternative name for yeast is called hydrolyzed protein. So to the unknown person, or sort of the person that doesn't really know about labels or synonyms or pseudonyms for all of these words, you could be caught off guard. So, again, really, really important to always scan your labels in the supermarket, because you might even find between brand to brand, one might be more pure in that sense and actually be honest about what it says on the labels, whereas other ones, and you'll find that when they get cheaper, the products get cheaper, then, you're not getting the 100% of that item, because they're sort of cutting it, or as I always say, you're putting fillers in it to sort of make it understandably cheaper, because it's not 100% of the thing. So that you just think to yourself, well, you might as well just spend a little bit extra, get the proper thing, and then at least you are eating what it says that you are eating. Right. So just again, scan your labels, cast your eye over the packaging, and just double check for any sneaky trigger foods or labels. And then again, you'll start to learn a lot more about all these names, and then you start to get more wise about all of these preservatives and additives, E144, E1 da 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 da, all code names basically that they don't want to write on the label, because they're not really good for you, but it is what it is. Okay, next thing I want to tell you, food intolerances is not a fad. Right. I mean, of course, it's very easy to assume with all the buzz in the media about free from foods that we're just sort of following the crowd, right? But it's not actually the case. there is an estimated 45% of the UK adult population suffering with a food intolerance. And more of us are actually taking up steps to discover our food triggers and understand that these changes we make to optimize our diets and well-being. So, and this is just based on a statistic of people that actually have done the test. And there's so many people out there. And I mean, everyone I meet typically hasn't done one before they meet me that haven't done it. So, it'd be very interesting if they sort of made it like a law that everyone had to do an intolerance and allergy test. I'd be very, very interested to know what results would actually statistically be, really a genuine, authentic statistic that would show and demonstrate, okay, who truly has nothing, and obviously how many or what percentage of the population are suffering or experiencing sensitivity to X, Y, and Z. Okay. And then the next thing, again, I'm going to reiterate this because, again, linking in with the previous podcast, it is not an allergy. So I hope if you've listened to the previous one, you understand a clear distinction between what an intolerance is and what an allergy is. And just sort of a high level again. So food intolerance and a food allergy are often thought to be variations of the same thing, but the biological processes behind them and how they affect you are very, very different. So unlike an allergy, a food intolerance is generally more common and usually involves a delayed biological reaction, which, although often uncomfortable and unpleasant, is not life-threatening. And remember, an allergy is life-threatening and will affect you within 2 hours of consuming something, and the reactions can be quite severe, and anaphylaxis can kick in, or having an anaphylactic shock, right? Well, and again, so whilst an allergy is sort of usually an instant reaction, intolerances can take up to 72 hours to present themselves. So typically up to 3 days, it can start affecting your body. So again, if you start to really experience symptoms where you feel like, wow, I feel really ill, and you think, well, I don't know what it could be because yesterday I ate food X, Y, and Z and I felt fine. But then you got to start thinking about what did you eat up to 3 days before, because it can take time. It's slow and sneaky, and how it reveals itself. So again, getting on top of your food education is really, really important. And sort of just the last thing to point out for today is people with food intolerances or / allergies, they love food. We all love food. We love food. If we could eat everything, I probably bet you we would. Sort of like if you see sort of in the medieval era with those long tables, big banquets of food, trust me, we would be getting straight all up in there. So it's like, don't be fooled by the perception that people with intolerances are sort of culinary killjoys, We love food. We really love food, probably as much of those without. We just love food. So there's no correlation that, the fact that we know our trigger food means that we look actually more for creative ways on how to substitute the ingredients that we choose to avoid. And this can actually lead to some delicious and unexpected alternatives. And it happens all the time because, I meet a lot of people who have triggers, who have sensitivities, and as equally I'm a teacher and helper to teach people to improve their lifestyles. Patients equally teach me some creative and innovative ideas, and I think like, wow, I would have never have thought to put that together, or I didn't know that was a good combination, or I didn't know you could actually cook it in that way, or I didn't know you could use that in that specific way either. I thought it was only X, Y, and Z. So it actually teaches you to become like a master chef and to become more and more creative, because you learn to sort of like get the varieties, the variety is the spice of life. So you get sort of a variety of ingredients. You start to understand more about food. You start to understand food groups. You understand combinations. You understand quantities, and then you understand how to really nutritiously feed your mechanism, your organism, your body, your constitution the right way. And for you, it might be you need more of a certain type of food. You might have to eat more at a certain time of day. You might want to eat smaller meals. You might want to eat more regular meals. You might want to fast. You might need sugar at a certain time. You might need to avoid meat in the evening. But, it's sort of a trial and error process that you start to figure out. When you start investing time and energy into your being, into your body, and it's a lifestyle, so you have to sort of treat it as a long-term project. And it fascinates me that we're at a point like where people start to look or investigate in their health maybe when they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And I think, but eating is something you do every day. And, typically the normal average person's doing it multiple times a day. And if you haven't even known what you've been putting in your body for a long time, that makes me a bit stressed, because I think wow, how have you been treating your temple? How much stuff is in there that needs to get detox, or maybe certain conditions that have arisen because of this dietary lifestyle that need to get reversed? What protocols do you need to instantly put in place to sort of increase the longevity of your life now that you might have taken so many years off due to the lack of knowledge of what you've been eating? And yet the tools that are available are so straightforward and so simple, and there's a lot of qualified professional people out there that can help you with this kind of thing. And then, specifically today, I just wanted to tell you a couple of things that people with intolerances want you to know. But if you want to get on top of this, because you're just thinking oh gosh, I actually don't really know what my intolerances or / allergies are, come give me a call. I'm affiliated with a laboratory that does we use blood samples. So it's a straightforward, easy finger prick test. So either you can get the test kit sent straight to your house, or you can come do them with me at the clinic. Then the blood samples will get sent off to the laboratory. They get tested. The results will get sent to me, and then we'll have a meeting or follow-up call to discuss your results, to see where you're at. And again, if you need some assistance with understanding what substitutes you need to add into your diet or incorporate into your lifestyle, then we work with that. And then we sort of go on a month-to-month basis, seeing how things are going. And if you ever need any aftercare support, I'm always here and always available to be of assistance. All right, so that's just going to mark the end of today's episode. Hopefully straightforward, easy and simple. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. So the website is www.medicalmindsetcoach.com. You can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Facebook, and there's also a WhatsApp number for business WhatsApp, +44 7397 885590. Wishing you a wonderful day anywhere where you are in the world. And thank you for listening. Have a great day. Bye.